boy that used to come home when we was flying out of Savannah, and if we got a chance, it was gonna be a day or so, we'd come to Filbert. I don't remember what. Hey, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. There's one day, 20 years and one day difference in my brother Joey, who lives right across the road from where you cross it right out here when you go out. And 20 years and one day, and that's quite a difference. And then my sister was 2 years. Let's see, she was 2 years about younger than I. So our family was kind of scattered. Let's see. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Wood family. My father's family lived and farmed the adjoining land around Union on two sides. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the graveyard, which he owned back on until it rested it. And let's see, Wood family, my family. I'm going to start over again here because I lost my place. Forgive me, I'm going to do that all. The Wood family, my father's family, lived and farmed the adjacent land around Union. Most of you that live around here know where Teddy Bryant and Brenda live right across the road. Well, that was the farmhouse. That's where all my daddy and aunts and uncles and stuff that were Wood were raised. Just a step right across and they still own the land right across the road here. That's the graveyard until I'll tell you a little while. I forget what year it was. We built the graveyard, but my daddy gave it to the church and had enough and laid that thing off. I'm telling you, he worked everybody in the country. That's a job, laying out a land with that many graves. And we had tin cans that we marked them and painted them all white colors so we get things mixed up. But we haven't. It's been good. It was done better than I thought at the time. It was. And I think I got that to Joey's name. We was flying out of Savannah, and sometimes one of my buddies in the crew would come home with him, and the family liked him and they named that baby after him. And he had worked for a newspaper in, I want to say Philadelphia, but that's not right. Anyway, he come down to visit Central. The Wood, I told you the Wood family, father and the family owned the land here and across the road and behind us, and was quite a bit of land way back, and people came from a long distance to Filbert. It was back when I was born, there was a lot of horse and mule and buggy riding to get to church. You think, hey, this when you're born in 1925, how old does that make you? Who can figure that out? Come on in. 96. So check up on your arithmetic. All right. Let's see. My daddy was raised right over here on Fairhope, in a house that Brenda, right beside Brenda and Ted Bryant, where they built right down below it on some of the land when they built. I remember them building, but I don't remember the date. So there were 7 children in the family, and you can imagine where they went to church when they could just walk right across, and that's what everybody had to do back then. When was the first automobile built? Well, that's all right, I wouldn't remember it either. But anyway, I was born in 1925, and Henry Ford hadn't waked up by then, so they didn't have any cars to ride. It didn't bother anybody to ride a horse, and if it was raining, a buggy. My aunt lived right there where the houses I explained, and she would ride to Filbert every day on a horse. The boys, her 4 brothers built her a shed up there at Filbert where she was teaching, and kept it full of hay. So she could feed, and then she'd back her buggy under the shed if it was raining, and she'd come in the buggy. So let me tell you about the family though, anyway. There were 7 children. Uncle Ernest, the oldest boy, had 2 boys. One of them, golly, it's hard to say. Some of you would remember Ed that run the store up there in Filbert. His daddy, Ernest, run the store up there before Ed left it to him. So it's been in the family a long time too, till I don't know when they closed it down, but it was right across the cotton field. Sure enough, a cotton field from where I was raised up to the store, and easy to walk. Let's see. There were 7 children. Uncle Ernest had 2 boys. Uncle Tom, no children. Uncle Chet had 4 children who were a doctor, a dentist, and 2 college educated nurses. So, and my daddy had 3 children. And Dad had 3 sisters, Aunt Hester, Aunt Leila, and my Aunt Elizabeth that everybody called Lizzie. I got another one right here I'm going to talk about in a minute, whose name was Leslie. And I hadn't heard of anybody being named Leslie in a long time. She taught, Aunt Lizzie taught Sunday school here and regular school at Filbert. For Aunt Lizzie taught great-grandchildren. She just taught so long that did pretty good. Had for a while 2 teachers and then 3 teachers, and then they got a lady that prepared the dinner. For a long time, the children brought their lunch, and I'm gonna maybe mention that again before this thing's over. I had many cousins, around the same age of I. And like I say, I was born here. There was so many names back then that's still in Union Church. McCarter, Wood, whole lot of other names and numbers for family names that had family, children and stuff then. Because nobody else much living then that was when listen, I've got a paper that was 51 preachers since they established Union Baptist Church. So, some of them long time, some of them not too long. And some of the members would ride a horse or a buggy quite a while to get here. And we shared a preacher early on because just one church just couldn't keep one up in the family. Either like York, we were with York, or Clover, or different bigger churches around, and so they kind of had it. These churches were much bigger and kind of had an advantage on us because of their size. And they would have the church and their activities like we do early in the morning, and Sunday school and church, but Union had theirs in the afternoon. Most everybody at Union back then farmed, and they were just about through with all the chores by say 2 or 3 o'clock, and hung around out here talking farming and politics till pretty late, to where they had to get home and do the chores and the feeding the horses and the cows and so forth. And some of the members come quite a distance. The church built our parsonage, and I was thinking after I sat down here, this section of the church wasn't here. Just the big section until there's a little plaque right out here on the end at the end of the other door where with the date that it was built, and I can't remember, but it was this part of the church back in here was built later, and we thought we were doing good in the parsonage. And usually, like I say, we would have a larger church, and they would kind of furnish a parsonage for the preacher, our preacher and their preacher and so forth. And I think I got down here somewhere what year we built our parsonage, and built it up in Filbert. I think it was in the 60s, and added a new fellowship hall there in the 90s. My father gave the land for the new cemetery, and he supervised laying the graves on. Each grave had a can that was marked, and all of them was painted, and usually a family would all want to be buried at the same place, but most of the lots in the cemetery were 4 and 5, and if the family, somebody died and they wanted to stretch it out a little bit, and a bunch of them be buried at the same place, they would probably put 2 or 3 graves together. But we had a preacher. His name was Rawlinson, and he wasn't married, but his wife, his mother, and his sister lived with him. And they was and we living in Filbert, and they was eating dinner with us, our family. I was 6 years old. I run it back down on the years that the preachers were here, and I was 6 years old, and they was eating dinner with us, and some of Daddy's help come through the yard and hollered in the house to Mama's help, and then hollered, said, "Billy got a rabbit in his box." And then caught me one, and I couldn't wait for that preacher to get through. I said, "Get the rabbit out of that box before he got out." Oh, Lord. But anyway, most of these men were sure enough preachers. And some of them rode horses. I need to tell you about Ken Small. How many people here remember Ken Small? Oh. Ain't that old?
59.
Y'all better wake me up. But he was at Union in 1959. And he was still in seminary, and he come home when he couldn't get away from the seminary on weekends and so forth. And he was going with this girl from Albemarle, North Carolina. And when they decided to get married, a lot of the ladies at the church here would have the girl that was with him. Her name was I got it down here somewhere, but it doesn't matter. I don't reckon. Back then, didn't nobody know him or her either one. But they decided to get married. They invited Roy Bryant and myself to participate in the wedding. We had to go to Albemarle to participate in the night before to go to the practice. And of course, all the other people participating in the wedding didn't know us. And we were just a little bit late driving all the way to Albemarle. But anyway, when we walked in, they were up on the stage, up on the near the pulpit, like they do. And this one of the girls didn't have a man with her, and there was two left. So Roy went to one, and I went to the other, and I got there close to her, and she put her arm through mine. I had my hand like this. She's pretty, man. When we started out from the practice the first time, I clamped down on her arm and right on out, stepped right on out of the church, opened my car door and pushed her in. You ain't heard the horn no more. But anyway, there was some foolishness going on back then too. Let's see. Once while walking down the street in Amarillo, Texas, I met a girl from Filbert and Union Baptist Church. Her name was Mary Louise McCarter. And we had passed, and I just kind of knew her. And I called her, and she was supposed to be Bobby away at the time. And I called Mary Louise, and she turned around and said, "Bill Wood." And we talked a minute. Both of us were in a hurry, and we had planned a time to meet somewhere, but it didn't work. So either he was gone or I was gone, but she had married that boy that was stationed there, just like I was. I met another friend from Filbert School. Now, M.B. Hall wasn't a Baptist. He didn't come to Union any more than everybody else in the community did. We meet here quite often. But M.B. married a Ford girl from Clover, who her family then and still take care of
Funeral.
Yeah. And I see MB. I saw him. I don't know for sure whether he's still living, but he was just a little bit older than I, so it ain't very possible.
15
But he
minutes.
married
15 minutes
15 minutes to what?
till the end of Sunday school.
Hit it? All right.
I'm supposed to tell
I
them.
joined the Air Force when I was 18, and just a year out of high school, finished in York, and all of us went to school in York, and I got another little story to tell about that in a minute. And Ruth, my wife, was from Clover, and really, to tell you the truth, I got a date with her sister, Sedell, who married Whiteside, and who got shot up pretty bad in the war. And anyway, when I went out to the house to get on the other side of Clover to get Sid, go somewhere, and I saw Ruth, and I fell in love, right? I hear you. Yeah, but anyway, that was before the war, and Ruth wrote me a letter just about every day, which really helped me all the time I was gone, no matter where I was. And she wrote, her family liked to sing. Her daddy and mama and the girls and two boys, and they would sing at different churches. And Ruth right here she sang in our choir, and Ruth Biggers, another Ruth, both of them sang alto, and oh man, it puts you on cloud nine to hear them two there. Anyway, we had three sons. The oldest boy, these foreigners over here in the corner, all the way from Fiji. They're missionaries in the Fiji Islands and are home for a furlough, I think. But anyway, one of the oldest girl got married last week. The oldest boy got a strong belief that that girl gonna have him in a couple months. And so I'm glad to have her. Like I say, my oldest son passed away in 2012, and you may know, all of you, but there's some of Ted's folks in here, there ain't but one of them know that I see got enough nerve to take pictures. But,
Video.
all right, can I go ahead now? All right. My wife passed away and was buried here at Union. So was my father and mother and aunts and uncles and my sister and the biggest part of her family were buried right out here at Union. My Aunt Leila, of course, she was the Wood, he was, and Uncle T.N. was the Thomason. And they had a two-story house in the intersection next going toward the store from my house. But over the years, their house has been tore down. But anyway, one of the girls, Rachel was her name, went to nursing school in Charleston, South Carolina. And while she was there, she met a Japanese doctor that had come over here to further his education and some subjects that he didn't know. His name was Shoki Lamada. And wasn't long after that war in our class, there was 3 boys in that war, and they had a fit. Oh, gracious Lord. Anyway, his family owned a hospital in Japan, but he just lacked some subject in his ministry that he wanted it to get here, and they stayed here. But like I say, just a few weeks ago, she called me from California. She had 3 children, 1 doctor and 2 nurses. So, and Shoki has passed away. And let's see. Oh, I told you the boys got tore up about she gonna marry one of the Japs. Old Joseph, the oldest one, flew a B-25. Ray, the next one, was a CB, and that was the Navy's construction part of the Navy. And he wrote to one of his little sisters while he was in there and told her that the mosquitoes were terrible on that little island where he was working at the time. He said, in fact, a mosquito landed on the runway and they put 20 gallons of gas in it before they found out it was a mosquito. I don't know where that girl, I don't know where she believed it or not now. Okay, let me see. And Nelson played football in the Navy. He's a big old stout boy, all of them were. And Ray carried the mail here in this district until he got through with his work. What you call it when you quit?
Retired.
Yeah. But anyway, everybody liked him. Ray was a good man, and he was a good man at the church. He volunteered for everything. He never did marry, but he sure was good at the Baptist church. Did anybody ask him? Let's see. David was too young. He was the other boy, but he was too young to go to war. Just a few weeks ago, it was the 3rd week ago from here, Rachel called me from California, where she lives now, and her husband has passed away, but the rest of the family are still doctors, nurses, and she's too old, I'm sure. Another preacher story you'd like to hear, I'm pretty sure, was Shannon Duncan. Now, there's a good many of you remember Shannon. Who remembers? Bobby, you remember Shannon. Anybody else? Do you? Okay. We got a few Shannon. Now, Shannon worked for UPS and wouldn't take a dime. And he was our interim pastor 3 different times. he would, like a preacher would leave, and we couldn't find one right off, and he'd come and preach again until we found another one. And like I say, he wouldn't take any money, but he'd want to go overseas every year after that. He would go on a mission trip to some poor country with doctors, and he and the doctors, they would work on the sick people, and he preached to them first. And the man called on me and Ted not a year or two ago. He moved and needed another little old shed for his hobby, which was shell loading and stuff. And we went over there and built him another little shed. Nice clinic. He's a good fellow. Well, I guess all of them were, but most of them did and have done good. Now, we played a game in church and called sword drill. And I'd like to see some more hands if he played sword drill in the church. This was till about wartime. I think I never did play it after the war that I remember. But you would have, say, 4 or 6 or a good many, and they would line up like, and we would invite other churches to come in and participate, and we'd have a good time. But I'd like to explain how it worked. You'd holler. These 4 or 6 team would be on the stage, and the leader would say, "Draw swords." Everybody had a Bible that was just alike to make it even. See, and they have that Bible in the left hand, and the leader there of the thing would call out for, say, "Draw swords." Well, they put that thing up where the left hand would be holding the Bible, the right hand would be hidden, and then he'd say, "Charge." No, he'd read a verse in the Bible, and then say, "Charge," and everybody go looking for with the right hand pointing and the left hand holding the Bible to get that verse. And it was really good, and it was taught to children or everybody that participated, not just children, would learn the books. Like, let's see, say John 3:16. That's when he had them up there, and he'd call out John 3:16, charge. And everybody would find John 3:16 and put the hand on it, and then hold up the hand to let them know that he or she had the verse handy and would recite it. And this was really educational and good for kids like us. You would learn where each book in the Bible, and then about where in that book that it was just good educational stuff. And like I say, we invited people in there. It was pretty tough. Some of them had that thing on it, that verse before we got it good. Okay. 2 boys were sitting by the window, the back window out in the church, and during the preaching. The windows wasn't nothing like they are now. They're small higher and all kind of good things there. One day it doesn't jump out. About the time he bailed out, things got quiet. He bailed out at a quiet time like that. His father was on him before he could untangle. And everyone could hear the licks and the yowls. and I'm still trying to find out whether right after that to put the windows bigger and higher. And the boy left the rest of his life. I think it's from that whooping his daddy did. All right. Let's see. I want to tell you one story about just the children from school instead of the children from Union Church, which a lot of them, I don't know, I don't say the majority, but a lot of them came to Union. But anyway, we had a school bus, and we had a group of men this year that were elected every year that had code whatever the school bus. In fact, they would let us one time. They would let us say go to the Shelby Fair. That had a big thing there. I'm gonna tell you something else big, but this Shelby Fair was the biggest this side of Columbia, and they let us go in the bus. And the Shelby Fair, drive that thing, cause that was a big time. Let's see. Now this is after this is school. Didn't have anything to do with Union Baptist Church, but this bus would make 3 trips. They'd go out this way to Cotton Belt, this way to Turner, and Smyrna and around, and then back. And every time he'd go, he'd put the children out that went to York School. And when they come back from all 3 of the trips, they'd pick them up and go to York and put the students out. And so we decided in the bus to skip school. Go to Kings Mountain Battleground. They had all kind of things to play with. Sliding boards, all kinds of things. And it was a pretty day, and there was 8 children in the bus. Everybody carried their lunch. 8. Okay. Reckon that means stop.
Finish your story first.
Hey,
Quick.
Let me finish this. There was 8 children went from Filbert School when we picked up that last to York, and them 8 children, we decided to skip school, and everybody carried their lunch back there to school. They didn't have a place to pick your lunch at school till later, and we decided that was going to get us in a bunch of trouble, but we had a vote. Everybody votes to whether to go to skip school. We never had done this before. It wasn't on the school record. And we decided we're going to have us an adult with us, or we were really going to get out of whack. And so I got the board to turn the school, and Lynn boy was driving the school bus. One of the students. I'm gonna stop right now. But anyway,
Will you finish
we turned the bus around and went by
Just
my
hit stop
house
and bring it
and
up.
my mama to go with her.
Thank you.
Bless her heart, she just did things like that for us, right? It was in the country, you, that's it.